Like they hear about a problem and they instantly go to the how. My mind goes to the why very quickly. Actually, first, how is almost the last thing that I think about because how has just so many ways and so many contexts and constraints and guardrails, but the why. And as soon as you why focus, it really shines a light as to the humans that are trying to achieve something, right? So maybe it's the CEO trying to achieve something, maybe it's the customers trying to achieve something. And that's why, because my focus is really human and why centric, then as a technologist, I get to recommend stuff that actually move the needle on the why. I say my technology approach, first of all, as a startup guy, very MVP focused, right? So always like MVP, MVP. And a lot of MVP thinkers think about the M and I think about the V. Like it's not just something minimal, it has to be viable, prove the concept you're trying to, the business model, the value, whatever it is.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where winning in the age of AI means mastering the tech without losing the human touch that makes customers stick around. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. What are the key to your next hire isn't a full-time exec, but a fractional leader backed by AI. It's pretty cool sounding, right? As technology evolves at incredible speed, the traditional model of hiring big, expensive teams is absolutely being challenged and, in many cases, completely reimagined. In this episode, we dive into the rise of fractional leadership and the shift toward lean, tech augmented growth strategies that help companies do more with less. You'll hear why today's smartest operators are flipping the script, asking, can AI do this first? Before ever posting a job description. From AI powered project management to no code product development, this conversation unpacks how startups are building, scaling, and iterating faster than ever without bloated headcount or permission from gatekeepers. We also explore the critical role of data driven decision making, how to create systems that support inevitable growth, and what it means to unblock your business from the inside out. Whether it's customer acquisition, product strategy, or operational design, technology is no longer just a tool, it's a teammate. If you're looking to build a more agile, efficient, and scalable business without burning cash on outdated structures, this episode will show you how the rules have changed and why that's a really good thing. Let's dive in. Our expert guest last Thursday was Mike Lander, entrepreneur, ex procurement director, and master negotiator. Mike talked about what it really takes to sell into enterprise. He shared how sellers can qualify smarter, reduce perceived risk, and navigate procurement to close bigger and better deals without burning cycles on the wrong prospects. And our founder last week was Iran Frendinger, co-founder and CTO of Voyantis. He showed us how predictable growth platforms are reshaping marketing, from signal optimization to AI-fueled customer insights. Iran explained how to future-proof your growth strategy in a data-driven world. If you missed either of those episodes, go back and check them out. Really great stuff. My guest today is Lior Weinstein, Fractional CTO and CRO. That's Chief Technology Officer and Chief Revenue Officer. It's an amazing combination, pretty rare. He is a 3-time founder and self-taught app builder since he was 14 years old. Lior has helped launch over 30 mobile apps used by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. But what really sets him apart, as if that's not enough, he is the go-to partner for $20 to $100 million founder-led companies that are stuck, whether that's tech debt, stalled growth, or just not knowing how to scale their digital roadmap. Lior's superpower is making complex things simple and building the right product, the right team, and systems to actually move the needle. Welcome someone who can help you build your next big venture, Lior Weinstein. Hey, Lior, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you for having me.
You founded your first tech company at 14, which is pretty awesome. And by your 20s, already exited 2 startups. That's awesomer. What was your first big entrepreneurial lesson from those early ventures?
I think the lessons are mostly hindsight. So I think,
It's for all of us.
yeah, I didn't get the lesson while doing it. I got the lesson after. I think definitely biggest lessons early on is that we make everything up. Like you don't really need permission. And when the first time I started, when I was 14, I actually had a limited liability company. And nobody told me that kids shouldn't have a limited liability company and send invoices. Like it was just, yeah, I want to do it. So I did it. And nobody told me otherwise. And I was lucky enough that my family didn't discourage it or thought it was weird or anything like that. So I had an environment that was supporting. And that's the biggest thing. You're making everything up. Everybody's making everything up. I think years later, I saw Steve Jobs. He had some kind of a line around that. Like the moment you realize that everything around you was made up by other people, it's some kind of that insight that like you can make everything up just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a big lesson from those early days. You don't need permission. You can make everything up, and that it's mostly up to you. Nobody's coming in to pull you. You have to push. You have to be with batteries included, and that's good and bad and scary. And that's I think that's part of the entrepreneurial journey, like being okay with it, that nobody's there to save you and you're there to build. Though those were definitely like the bigger foundational lessons from those early days.
That's really good. And I love that. Just that everybody is that's creating is making it up. That's part of the entrepreneurial journey. We make it up as we go. There is no trail. We're cutting the trail through the jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're working fractional CTO, chief growth officer, 20 to $100 million revenue businesses. What made you shift from running your own startups to helping other companies scale?
I still do both. I still like being a founder. And
Love it.
in those cases, I own 20, 30, 50% of a company. But my focus now is really just in life. Now I have three kids. They're at this point, they're still young, 9, 6, and 4, and we travel a lot. And having the freedom of relationship was something I picked up from Dan Sullivan is a big deal for me. Understanding what are the people I spend time with? Who are they? I just realized that I get like super antsy and annoyed and generally negative if I'm meeting like a person that I don't like vibe with. I like kind, smart, curious people. And if it's the opposite of one of those three, it doesn't have to be all three, but if it's the opposite qualities, then it really just tears me down for the week and
Yeah.
just takes away my energy, takes away my fun. So most of my focus is really that. And then I learned that with other entrepreneurs that have amazing big visions, big missions, but technology is a gap and maybe growth is a gap. And I professionally, I grew up in both spaces, both from marketing and sales and on technology. And then I get, although I was a 0 to 1 guy all my life, and I love it, and I'm an athlete and I'm really good at it, I realized that they just have a different zero. I can get to
Sure.
come, and their zero is 20, 50 million, but their opportunities 500 million or a billion. And I get to have this amazing relationship with them, with the founders, and I get to shine with my skills. And the focus is really the relationship and not so much like the activities, because the activities change. The stuff we're doing now with AI is not what we did 3 years ago, but it's the same general responsibility, right? They need somebody to own the technology or own the growth because that's not their background in my partner's cases. And it's really fun because now startup, it's all duct tape and ramen and pizza. You're trying to be very scrappy and have very high leverage. And I like still having the scrappy mindset and the high leverage mindset, but also being able to put in resources that make a dent really quick, right? You don't have
Yes.
to wait a few months because you're hiring a cheap developer. So you just pay with time. And now I could, Lord, just get the senior guy, the senior AI powered engineer and get it done in 6 weeks instead of 6 months. And that's more fun. You get just more acceleration on making the ideas come true. And then upside wise, one, it's a good hedging is good. It's solid strategy. Concentrating efforts is also good, solid strategy. It has a different kind of mental tax and
Yeah.
emotional tax. And for these years where I'm a very active dad, it's a balance that I had to make a choice. Am I going to be a full on 20 hours a day founder, which is that's my nature, versus being an active present dad? And I'm choosing my kids over that kind of modality because I can always go back to it if I wanted to. So I get to still have impact, still have plenty of upside with all these opportunities, a little bit more fun because I get to be more in charge and less in control. and the personal balance or the personal harmony is much better than when I was just running and gunning on a single startup.
That's awesome. And you'll never regret making the choice
No,
to put your family first.
never.
And yeah, revenue can always be made, but kids are only young ones.
That's
So
it.
spending time with them, that's a great choice.
That's it.
Yeah. Your background is really unique in that you have the technology as well as the revenue and growth. And that's a very unique combination. How has that served you in the companies you work with?
I think I say in marketing and sales, like even in one of my companies where I teach like other CTOs how to do this, how to be like fractional CTOs, I can't tell them you're entrepreneurs that happen to be CTOs, right? So I look at my technology and marketing or sales is just like skill set I have in my quiver, right? I have it in my tool
Hmm.
belt, I have it in my toolbox, in my tool shed. Some of them I use every day, some of them I use once in a while. But it's just skills and anybody can learn them. Marketing and sales, this is not rocket science, but it is science. There's a certain way to do it to get a predictable result. And this is outside of the brand universe of that kind of storytelling. And for me, I'm just human centric. I'm just people centric. And I happen to have the mechanical skills of growth or of technology, but really my focus is people. And because of that, I think a lot of technologists come in and their mindset is very how, right? They hear about a problem and they instantly go to
Sure.
the how. And my mind goes to the why very quickly. Actually, first, how is almost the last thing that I think about because how has just so many ways and so many contexts and constraints and guardrails, but the why. And as soon as you why focus, it really shines a light as to the humans that are trying to achieve something, right? So maybe it's the CEO trying
Yeah.
to achieve something, maybe it's the customers trying to achieve something. And that's why, because my focus is really human and why centric, then as a technologist, I get to recommend stuff that actually move the needle on the why. And I say my technology approach, first of all, as a startup guy, very MVP focused, right? So always like MVP, MVP. And a lot of MVP thinkers think about the M and I think about the V. Like it's not just something minimal, it has to be viable, prove the concept you're trying to, the business model, the value, whatever it is.
Right.
And so very MVP focused, which is super useful because it controls scope creep and yeah, it makes you think about scope to begin with.
Yeah.
And then budget and all that. So that from on the technology. And then on the growth, so also on the technology, because I have the growth in mind, then it's the understanding of like, where's the customer coming from? How do we know it? Do we know that technical thing? Do we need a pixel tracking to go into some tracking system? Is the salesperson getting a notification? Is the marketing team getting a cookie pull to work with? So all these things I integrate. And then same thing on the sales side. When somebody's coming in with a sales problem or a growth problem, I'm able to either say, maybe a technology can do this. Maybe the AI note taker can take notes in the meeting instead of you,
Yeah.
right? Maybe the AI can follow up. Maybe the CRM can auto update so we don't have to, the salesperson can focus on sales and not on paperwork, so to speak. So in all cases, because I ask human first and then I oscillate between the growth and technology, I'm able to be efficient and I'm able to just focus on the impact and the outcome and not the how, not just like be too obsessed with the how.
Yeah.
It's certainly very useful and it's fun for me. Like I like always prioritizing. Like somebody can come in with. I actually just had a conversation this morning with a director of customer success with one of my clients, and he was showing me all these like 10, 15 experiments that he wanted to execute, and I was asking what's the framework to choose,
Right.
and I'm like, let's look at the retention. Let's assume we're improving 10% churn. What's the revenue impact if we do that month 1 versus month 4? Because this 3 experiments, they're more of like a long-term optimization versus these 4 experiments that are about the first 10 days of the subscription. So where are we going to get more lift? Just kind of constantly going and saying this technology project, which is going to take us a week and a half and maybe cost 5 or 15,000, might have $1 million dent versus this one that might take 6 weeks because it's very sophisticated prompting and automations and pop-ups and emails might only make another 100 grand a year in revenue if it's successful. It's constantly going like, when I talk about technology, talk about the business impact. When I talk about business impact, talk about technology. Just using both at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense. What do you think the most common growth mistake founder-led companies make is?
There's quite a few. I would say going multi-channel too early.
Yeah.
Too early. They're like, let's do Facebook and Google and YouTube and content and organic. I'm like, it's like choose the one that
How
if
about
it
get
if
one working first?
that's right. And also choose the one that if that one doesn't work, all the rest don't matter. All the rest don't matter. And because you really want to validate or invalidate in an experimental fashion as fast as you possibly can. So going multi-channel too early. And then there's an issue with marketing, right? The biggest mistake in marketing, in my opinion, is sub-therapeutic dose, right? So you say, I'm
Mm,
going to do Google, and you spend $10,000 and then spent. And they're like, oh, we tried Google. It didn't work. Like if you're in a market that you're paying like $30 a click, you bought 300 clicks.
right.
What do you think is going to happen in 300 anything? They give up too soon and they don't want to appreciate the amount of effort and volume that a channel, any given channel needs. And on the flip side, I've seen companies, I've had clients where I got into and they were spending 80, 100 grand a month in, let's say, meta ads. And the cost per lead was like $500, $600. And based on the conversion rate, it's a never ROI. Never.
Right.
And I'm like, you're not even marketing team pushing leads. Look at the cost per lead, look at how it goes down, the graph goes down. But I'm like, your bottom, considering all the conversion rate from lead to setter to sale to proposal to close, is an impossible ROI. Like you're talking about a $10,000 cost of acquisition for a $3,000 lifetime value. That's the other one, like siloed marketing and sales, where they don't integrate the funnel end to end, and they're not, and every side thinks they're doing a good job. The sales guys are thinking they might be complaining about volume of leads, but they're like they're closing. And the
Right.
marketing is like we're getting leads and the graph is going down and the volume is going up. The cost is going down, the volume is going up, but they fail to integrate both. That's why you have like chief revenue or chief growth, like somebody that actually looks at both departments, both activities. So multi-channel, sub-therapeutic dose, like in terms of like critical mass of effort, and then just not being data driven. I was just it's funny also yesterday I was talking to one of our revenue ops specialists and we launched a new campaign with one of the companies and I asked how's it going. They're like, oh, we got 10 leads. It was like the last 2 days at $53 a lead. I'm like, okay, how many like connects did we have? And zero. We didn't get them. Like, oh, zero out of 10 or 12 leads. I'm like, yeah, 2 didn't have a phone number. I'm like, okay, get that. But 10, yeah, they came after hours. I'm like, oh, then let's just constrain the budget to in business hours because then our team could just call them instantly, right? They're like,
Right.
yeah, the marketing manager and the agency, they thought that after hours has more eyeballs. I'm like, one, maybe. B, I told you I love digital marketing. Why I've been doing it for 25 years almost. That opinions don't matter. It's all data. It's all number.
Right.
This is
Right.
not a brand campaign. We're showing an ad to a funnel, to a lead, trying to sell something. So opinions don't matter. Like I don't care about an opinion. I care about ideas, right? Do an hypothesis,
Yep.
have an idea, execute, measure, see if it's good. If it's good, do more. If it's not, stop. It's a simple framework. But as soon as she said it, I'm like, data. Like basic.
Yeah.
You might be true in the overall context. After hours has more traffic because people are not at work and so on. But we're not spending $1 million a day. And if we're successful, we're going to
Right.
spend 5,000-10,000 a day. And there's plenty during business hours. So just do that. So data-driven approach for sure. That's organizationally, like a lot of organizations need to think about that and not just fall in love with a marketing concept or a sales script and detach it from the overall impact and how everything ties together.
Yeah. I think that's really smart to look at it holistically like that and follow the data.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of your concepts, turning black boxes into glass boxes. I think that's brilliant, whether it's in the revenue side or in tech.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little more about that and why is transparency in technology so critical in becoming more?
I think it's very common for me when I get to clients, and I see this with other fractional CTOs as well, is that most of the market for us is small to mid-sized businesses. Is what we call like tech-enabled businesses as opposed to tech businesses, right? Meaning they're not in the business of selling technology, but they're using technology, which you can argue today everybody's a tech company.
Right.
Everybody's a tech
Right.
company. That's just what it is. I thought about writing that book, like you are a tech company, and just to make even the barber and the plumber, they're a tech company,
Yeah.
and even though they deal with atoms. And what we find is that using technology is inevitable. Like you can't not do it. You have to do it. And if you end up tooling, like building your own technology to use, it's very common when we meet CEOs that they have no idea what's going on. They know everything feels slow. They know it's expensive. They know they don't understand the development shop they hired or the
Yeah.
in-house team they have. Every time they ask about progress, the in-house team explains it, but they don't understand it, and they're still frustrated. Like all the emotion of the result is there. And the big benefit that me and myself and people like me bring to organizations is to bridge that, be that translation layer, right? Because most companies, and by the way, not too rare that I get to a company and I'm actually a peacemaker. I'm actually like explaining to the
Mm.
CEO, oh, like they're not slow. This is just how long this takes, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, if you want that feature, there's a process to talk about features and there's a process to metabolize an idea into code and product, and you're just not following. So because you're not following it, this is how long it takes and this is why. Because from an idea, you need to create stories. From stories, you need to analyze it down to tasks, and tasks need to get into code, and code needs to be tested. So I explain the process, and then they understand the variables, and they'll say, oh yeah, of course, if this requirement is very high level and there's nobody to make it specific to the eventual painter that's on the canvas or the coder,
Right.
then of course it's going to be slow and inaccurate and not effective. So being able to go to them and tell them, explain the process so in a way they understand it, and then give them confidence in priority, like what is important. It's not just the fact that they think a feature is relevant. So if they think about a feature is going to delight the customers, I'm like, okay, how do you know it? What's the reason? Is it like divine insight? Is it like customer feedback and just introducing customer feedback, introducing reports and data driven insights and testing and thinking in cohorts, like saying we have X amount of users in the system or in the service. Let's just test on 50 or 100 and see if we need to bubble it up to the thousands and so on. So introducing the mechanics in a way that they can explain it and the benefit really unlocks their vision, because once they get some confidence in the process, their vision can expand, because that's why they're CEOs to begin with. They like their customers, they love their customers, their industry for the most part. And what's happening now with AI is that product build more and more becoming commoditized, and the
Yes.
differentiator starts to become the experience, the customer experience, and all the other things that you have, that you get from the product and the brand and the relationship and the insight on a specific pain or a problem. Because especially with the tools now, for depending on your use case, you might be able to just go from words to fully working product with payments in really in minutes these days, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
And certainly within hours. Like hours is, whoa, what are you building that's taking you hours? That's the kind of
Right.
conversations we're starting to have. And so because it's becoming more available and easier and more accessible, then we see an inflation of products, inflation of ideas. More people can become entrepreneurs, and the world is generally shifting from buy to build. And I think the systems that are still going to be in the buy are going to be so cheap that, because right now, think about it, with no code, we're basically 3D printing software. You and I can
Right.
think, let's build a podcast streaming software, and probably within the same day we'll have something pretty good. Right? I just saw on
Right.
Twitter somebody built like their own version of they were paying for a few dozen licenses of a signature system, like
Yes.
PDF signature, and they build their own with a no code tool, and now it's free. So stuff like that. As soon as you can 3D print just for your particular set of needs, then when that reality is there, that means if you're developing product, your price point is probably going to have to come down dramatically. So it's not even going to be worthwhile going and saying what you want. Like it's to that level.
Right.
And of course, like access to specific like data and relationship and experiences that are becoming more of the moats rather than the cost of big software, and to compete with
Right.
it, you would have needed to hire millions of dollars worth of engineering. Now that's becoming tens of thousands of dollars, and probably in a not distant future, or it's already in some cases, it's just cost cents.
Right.
So the world is shifting from buy to build, but to build right, you need to have good product insight and good architecture insight, because the basic things are not going away, like authentication and security,
Right.
automation, off platform, email, text, like understanding how all these things come together, IP, intellectual property, all these things come together. And people that have been building products for 15, 20 plus years have tremendous advantage in being those Sherpas for the people with the vision that make it up, and then you're there to help them make real. So the world is shifting to that, and the more experienced individuals come in and they just get to basically give them all of the lessons and none of the scars, saying, if I
Yeah.
didn't have to hire 50 engineers for 2 years and it was more of a magic wand conversation, this is what I would say, and this is how we would build it. And because the
Mhm.
magic wand is suddenly real, it's a open sesame moment, right? The fact that you can go
It really is.
to base 44 replit lovable and just say blah blah blah, give me an app that does video streaming, and you get it. Okay, but you need people to that know the craft, know the spells,
Yes.
and that's a huge shift.
Technology has moved so fast, and just software development, just like you said, just the things that can be built things in a weekend that would have taken 6 months
Yeah,
just a few years ago and multiple people. And I'm not even good. It's just the speed of innovation and just what is out there available that is pretty incredible. I do think you mentioned something really interesting just about modes. One of them, at least for the short term that I see, is the reason to buy versus build is security. And really just having that comfort factor, especially if you're dealing with sensitive data that another company has reviewed. But I think even that over time is going to continue to be commoditized, just like development.
yeah,
Just authentication is something it's a standard, and so then you take a tool and it's developing according to that standard. Or you're able to take a framework and say it's got to be compliant with this, and it's understanding that framework a lot better than a developer does. Ready to future proof your company and scale to new heights? Dive into the ultimate resource designed just for SaaS founders and C suite executives. Champion Leadership Group gives you an unfair advantage in scaling up revenue and outwitting competitors. Imagine solving your biggest scaling headaches and hitting 5, 10, 20 million ARR and beyond with ease. We take away the guesswork and the grunt work and replace it with framework by supporting you with our on demand fractional C suite team, a powerful operating system built into software, and a thriving community of fellow scaling SaaS founders. That's how we make it happen. If you're stuck at your current revenue level, this is your ticket out. Feel like your company is the world's best kept secret? We amplify your success. And hey, if you're already crushing it but too busy to breathe, we got your back. We'll free up 20% of your time in the first month. Now is the time to upgrade from traction to scale. If you're ready to work smarter and not just grind harder, schedule a 10-minute growth brainstorm. Completely free, not a sales call. You can't buy anything on there. And we will pinpoint the number one thing blocking revenue. Visit championleadership.com. That's where leaders evolve and companies transform.
yeah. Now with base 44, shameless plug, I just love that. I'm not affiliated, but I love it a lot. So base44.com, which is a no code kind of tool that
Yeah.
a friend built it by himself, and it's incredible, and it's integrating all the capabilities. So it has built-in authentication, built-in payments, built-in security, built-in APIs, built-in a lot of things. And this is what we see now with the revolution of like MCPs, model context protocol. So you can develop a server that basically explains to other AI how to use you, how to use the API.
And that is amazing to me.
Incredible.
But that's the future.
Yeah, it's the future, and it's already here. So that's
Yeah.
why it's amazing. Somebody just went viral last week, basically making any GitHub project an MCP. So
Wow.
like any API can now, it's all basic and all. I wouldn't take it into extreme production, but it's already there. And the fact that people can abstract capabilities and suddenly work with any tool and extend capabilities with any tool is incredible. And it's really back to the standard. That's what we're seeing. Like even now, the big models in the AI space, so Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, all of them are going SOC 2, HIPAA, like all of them are going there. So you're able to use the
Right.
big companies for super sensitive stuff. And once you have SOC 2 and HIPAA, you only have a couple of more like big ones. You have a manufacturing one, I forgot what it is right now, and then you have FedRAMP,
ISO. Yep.
ISO.
Yeah. FedRAMP, PCI.
Yeah, so once you have those, PCI, I would say it's a solved problem at this point
Yeah.
for all kind of payment stuff. But once you have platforms that support all these from the big commercial models and they're so cheap, then it is interoperable. Like you can build software with
Yes.
anything and get all the capabilities with all the compliance in it. Oh, I would say somebody asked me about, do you think developers are going to go away? I'm like, that's an interesting question. I think experts, like the top performers of any field, never go away. I think
Right.
the top blacksmith has a job and is fully booked.
Yes. Always.
The top poet has a job and they're fully booked. The top juggler has a job and they're fully booked. And top lawyer, same thing. Top coder, same thing. So I think the top of any profession would always and forever have a job, literally. But I do think the junior and mid, yeah, they're becoming extremely redundant. I see it on my teams now. Like it's just, I'd rather hire a senior engineer that has been there, done that, and AI powered because they don't have an ego. Ego is a big problem right now for anybody in
Yeah.
the AI space. Am I doing it or somebody else? I'm all for it. I think everybody should do it. So senior guy, AI powered, senior developer, AI powered, and their productivity is 5 or 10 people. So even if my base salary is 20, 25,000, it's really like I'm paying 10 people 2,000.
Right.
And it's a non-issue. And I get to work with somebody that needs less hands-on because they have more experience, so they need less explanation. And that's not something like, it doesn't matter how talented an 18-year-old developer is, they just need more explanation. They just don't have the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge revolution. And at the same time, so I do think that those levels are probably not going to be sustainable professionally. I see it now, just how many people are looking for jobs and hard to find.
Hmm.
But at the same time, everybody can become an entrepreneur now. So if you're
Right.
a little bit technical, these tools are ridiculous in terms of productivity and opportunity.
Yes.
And then it goes back to more kind of classical think about just value and how to create value. And this is something, if you remember the famous 1,000 True Fans
Yes.
article, like the internet already enabled this 25, 30 years ago, of allowing anybody anywhere in the world to find their 1,000 true fans and make income forever.
Yep.
And now with these tools, that concept of making income forever and building something super valuable for a very small subset of humans out of the 10 billion or however many are is accessible to everybody. So I think developers, junior and mid are going to have a harder time if they don't upskill really quick, but there's going to be an inflation of need. Like way more
Yes.
people are going to want to do this, and they're going to need guides and talented thinkers to be able to help them do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had conversation multiple times and just explaining your job is not going to exist in 2 years. And they're like, of course it will. The things you do today are not going to be the things you're doing in 2 years. So the job you're doing today
That's right.
is not going to exist in the form
Maybe
it is
same
today.
title,
It's
not the
going to be
same
fundamentally
activities.
transformed.
That's it.
Yeah,
Same titles, not same activities.
exactly. Yeah, the titles may or may not change,
Yeah.
but the activities will 100% change. And if we don't start changing today,
Yeah.
then you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So it's an imperative. It's not something you experiment with or think about, or maybe we'll see what happens. I mean, the ship is sailing.
Absolutely inevitable.
Better jump.
Yeah.
And are you seeing any hesitation from a technology standpoint from CTOs that have been around for a long time and seen technology move, or are you seeing them adopt very quickly and adjust?
Absolutely. I definitely. So most are great. Like most are definitely adopting. Most are definitely like, at least the ones that I'm seeing in bias, because
Sure.
obviously the ones I'm seeing are more entrepreneurial in nature. But I do have quite a few CTOs that I meet that are still not, barely use the tools, definitely not sync on capabilities, and they're going to have a hard time. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
They're going to have a hard time because people are going to look to them. We just had somebody in the program. They were pitching a prospect and they've never done AI stuff. And they get on a call with somebody, and the first question the guy asks, "What do you do with AI?" And he's, "It depends on what you need." And he's, "What do you do with AI?" It was like pushing him on it. And so it went nowhere because both of them realized, okay, like irrelevant. And I think those conversations are going to be more and more relevant. I think CEOs feel the FOMO. They also feel economic pressure, with
Yep.
rising costs, or they're looking to cut costs and they don't know what to do with AI. So as soon as they meet a technical leader, they ask them. So I think if you're in technology and you don't have good answers, I think you should really dive deep and get the skills and get the experience. Same for marketing, by the way. If you're paying the same retainer for your marketing agency in 2025 as you did in 24, 23, and you're getting the same level of delivery, you need to change. You need to
Yep.
change
That's
because
exactly
of
right.
you need to change because of you got two signals. Signal number one, they're not up to date. Signal number two, they're not trying to be, and that's a problem. That's a problem. Meaning that's a choosing a partner like an agency. That's usually very kind of good partnerships, right? When they work well, you want
Right.
somebody that's ahead of you. They're innovating, they're learning, because that's why you pay them. You pay them to like always be better,
Right.
and they're not. And I think right now, certainly in some parts of marketing, like copywriting, SEO, funnels, like all those, in a world where you have like prompt to funnel, where with elaborate instructions, you can have 500 blog posts created in a day, good ones. There's no excuse for these old models. Yeah, we're going to do 2 articles a week and we're going to send you a list of titles. I'm like, you can integrate your entire quarterly thing and send you a list of titles. I'm like, you can integrate your entire
Right.
quarterly thing. So I think the AI powering should be a feature and not something they hide and not something they're ashamed of. It's something that they need to prove. Just it's going to be weird if you work with a copywriter that doesn't use Google Docs or Word. Like, what are you writing? It's like it's a
A
tool.
typewriter.
Yeah, exactly. It's an expectation. Like it's under expectation that you're going to get a scanned copy from a typewriter or a handwritten note for your blog post. The expectation is you get a formatted WordPress blog or
Right.
whatever it is. So I think AI right now is an expectation, and there's certainly people that are still resistant. I get it. We're still ChatGPT in terms of like business impact. Like November 30th, 2022, I think was the launch.
Yep.
And so we're 2 years and a bit, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And only now, really, like in the past 2025 has been a banger year for AI. Like huge,
Without a doubt.
huge upgrades, huge capability. So I totally get some of the lack of like experience, but not the hesitancy. I think if you're still hesitant about it, you need to get over it and go help people because they're going to need your help. And you're able to figure it out as a professional for your clients that want to do something else in business.
Yeah. Well, you launched CTOX,
Mhm.
which has 140 members currently. So you're putting awesome CTOs into companies, as well as creating a community for CTOs, which I think community is incredibly valuable. How'd you come up with the idea? What was the inspiration behind it?
So I've been doing fractional leadership work for many years in different forms. So I used to do like full delivery, so lead and deliver, build and transfer type projects coming in, give me requirements, I do the whole thing, transfer it to the organization, and then I did it within organizations. And then the opportunity came up to train people how to do it. So the crux of our program, we almost have, I think we just had over 160. The crux of our program is actually
Awesome.
teach you all the skills how to do it yourself. And then if you don't want to do it yourself, we also do it with you, do it for you, the whole thing. But the premise was, especially for me being technical, that's very kind of growth and marketing oriented. I'm like, man, so many companies need technology leaderships and the technologists don't know how to market themselves. And marketing and sales,
True.
again, not rocket science, but it is science. So I figured, you know what? This is a good opportunity. I can teach them how to build their own pond they can fish from any day of the week, right? So they're not bound for placement companies to give them leads. They can negotiate their own terms. They can build upside into their contracts, which when you just get leads from companies, you generally can't do that or don't do that. And it gives them this amazing lifestyle because a lot of senior technologists, we've been there, done that. We've done the boot camp, we went through the ranks,
Yeah.
and it's way more fun for us to be on the strategy level, like 30,000 feet. But then if we need to parachute down to the lobby for a little bit, that's also fun. But otherwise, it's a very rewarding career. And most of the bottleneck for them is learning marketing and sales. And then the bottleneck for business owners is understanding that you don't need to pay 40 grand a month for a full-time CTO salary because your technology needs aren't about managing $30 million worth of technology spend. And if you're spending one, two, five, $10 million a year on technology, you probably don't need a full-time CTO.
True.
It's the reality of it. You know, like my constraint with technology is the resources of the company. It's not ideas. My ideas can fill a pipeline for a decade. So it's not ideas. It's really just their ability to execute, the organization's ability to execute on ideas. And so just having understanding that also CTOs is such a global thing, right? So I'm from Israel originally. You can be an Israeli CTO for an American company. You can be a German CTO for an Argentinian company. Marketing, for example, is somewhat different. If you're
Yes.
marketing to Southern preppers, finding a guy from the Netherlands to be your CMO, probably not the best idea, right?
Not a great fit.
You want a guy from Texas to do that. So you need cultural alignment with your target market. With technology, you need them to know bits and bytes, and that's so many of them in the world. Millions and millions of software engineers, and then hundreds of thousands of technology leaders in different levels. Yeah, so that's where and I love coaching. I love coaching. I love explaining. I love helping. So I get to do what I love, and I get to give them skills that they just don't have, and they can build a life that they want. And I get to, by proxy, help all the other businesses in the world that are not managing or building technology right because they think they can't afford the talent. And this reframes all of it. With AI, this even gets more and more because even now, when I'm with my own clients, when I'm building teams, two things happen. Like when we hire, there's an immediate question of if you want to hire somebody, you have to prove that AI can do it first.
I love that.
And if because one, it forces the team to actually investigate and scrutinize the
Right.
task and not just say, oh, we need somebody to do this. I'm like, break it down, see if AI can do it. And you have to prove to me that it can't, meaning you have to show me something that it can't. And they have to show me because I'm pretty good at what I do. So I can actually look at it and say, have you thought about this? If you thought about that, if you thought about this tool, that tool, and so on. And then if we really like, yeah, this can be done, okay, let's hire. So that means our ability to scale by building as opposed to hiring is super interesting and is very unique. And you keep the cost efficiency and you really get to work with talent that's top notch. I think for me, it's rewarding all around. I get to coach. I'm in my essence, I'm very much of an introvert. Like in a podcast form, it's just me in the room, right? Nobody else is here.
Sure.
So it's easier.
Sure.
I'm very much, and I get to have a community of a couple of hundred, let's call it that, people on Slack, and we get to talk shop, which is super fun. But I get to give them the skills that they're lacking to build their life. And they impact business owners on the other side, which feels to me like I'm impacting those business owners because they're using my frameworks on how to manage the client, how to create technology roadmaps, all these things. Yeah, that's the impetus of it. It was just incredible opportunity.
I like that. And you're right. Companies in that range, most of them don't need a full-time CTO.
No.
And because it's strategic, it's a short-term need. And I love the fractional model. Whether it's a CMO, CFO, CTO, you can go so far with the fractional resources. And I think a lot of times you even get a much better resource fractional than you could if you did hire full-time.
Yeah, way better because you get hiring somebody like me for 10, 15,000 a month full time is a impossibility. I have no reason to do it of the opportunities I have in the market. And you don't need it. Like both of those things are true, right? You can do it and you don't need it. And
Right.
maybe I would be willing to do it for less for a different scope. So you get to have all of my experience, all of my lessons, right? You don't have to get burned. I can walk you through it. Also, there are natural, fractional is the new, some professionals have been fractional for many years, right? Like you know them, like fractional CFO, for example, right? That one's been around for a while. But there are some positions that are inherently fractional. People just don't understand it because we get this common question. I actually get it more from the fractional executives than I do from the clients about like why hire fractional kind of thing, which is interesting. Meaning that's the
It
supply
is.
side that has more doubt than the demand side, which is normally it's the opposite. And and I tell them like with the business owners, if that's a conversation to explain it, is your CPA full time? And no, unless you're an enterprise, it's not full time. And I'm like, is your a lawyer
Right.
full time? No, it's not full time. And I would argue those are way more critical to the company and have sensitive data and sensitive conversations and sensitive implications than something like a CTO or a CMO.
Yeah.
So it's like key thing that like it's your liability, it's your books, it's your taxes, it's your salary, it's everything. And you're fine with that being fractional. You just don't call it fractional, but that's exactly what the CPA does. He gives you a fraction of their
Right.
attention, but he gives you 100% of the outcome that you need.
Yep.
Same with the lawyer. He gives you a fraction of his attention or her attention, but he gives you 100% of the outcome that you need. And that's the same thing with us. We say we can give you 100% of the outcome for a fraction of the cost. We're not using fractional to describe the attention or the impact. We're using fractional to describe the cost. As a
Right.
function, it's obviously part-time attention by definition, but the time doesn't matter because with my clients, I
Right.
think about them 24/7. I'm an entrepreneur. I think about him on Saturday. I think about him on Sunday, right? If I meet somebody, I'm like, oh, you should talk to this company that I work with, right? I'm an advocate. I'm in charge. I'm responsible. I'm accountable. Even though my net meeting time might be partial because that's
Right.
what the job requires because I'm putting the cake in the oven, but I don't need to stare at the oven while the cake is baking.
Exactly. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I think
useful for management in general to understand like you're giving instructions and then you need to wait for the thing to become real until the next decision cycle.
I think a lot of companies struggle once they get to 10, 20, 30, 50 million in revenue and processes start slowing things down and they're not nearly as agile as they were early on. What's your playbook for scaling without losing agility?
Wow, I have a lot of it. So I have this thing that I developed. So I used to have an agency that we did performance marketing and technology. And performance means you're generally making money on a business result, like something happens, right? Like leads or revenue or something like that. So with that agency, we used to say, hey, give us all the bits and bytes, all the ones and zeros. I don't care if it's a printer or a funnel, right? Or code. I'll take it for a fixed price retainer, 10, 20 grand, but give me uncapped commissions on net new revenue we create for the business. And different business models
Nice.
could give us 10%, some could give us 20, some could give us 5. But it had to be uncapped and it had to be based on revenue because I want easy tracking, right? And profit is
Right.
hard to track. They said it like each business said their own thing because they have their industry and they understand their economics. And it grew very fast. It grew quite aggressive. We were almost 40 people by the end of the first year. And that's actually what made me realize that I just don't want to manage an agency. I'd rather be on the leadership side and not on the management side of the value delivery. And in that, I developed a framework I call inevitable growth. So the big pitch for me for them was saying, listen, I can't promise you results, which was always like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't,
Right.
results is a lot of variables in results, right? Market, platform, customers, like too many, you, like the business itself. So I can't promise you, but I can promise you effort and like input and effort, but no output. And I was telling them, I'm going to create an environment where growth is inevitable. Meaning, we have a way to come up with ideas, with projects. We have a way to underwrite them, saying, okay, this is going to have this impact, that impact. And this is going to be the cost. Maybe we can do it with a contractor. Maybe we can repurpose existing things. Maybe we need to develop something new. And then we run experiments on a quarterly basis and we measure those experiments against the expected impact. And
Mm,
if we do our job well, the things that work stay and grow, and the things that don't stop and make room for new initiatives until the only
makes
thing you
sense.
have left is initiatives that work. And so in that model, I created that projects do one of three things to an organization. We're either going to de-risk, could be personal risk, John with the spreadsheets. We need to get it out of John with the
Hmm.
spreadsheets. Could be system, like we have one server, we need a backup. It could be compliance, could be a whole host of risk elements that we're de-risking. The next is unclog. So we have throughput issues, right? Like leads are actually, I just had this 3 months ago. Leads come in and it takes them 48 minutes to follow up with the lead. I'm like, that needs to be 2 minutes. So that's a
Yep.
good example of an unclog, right? The process is there, but it's too slow and we just need to make it faster. Same thing for onboarding. It takes us 72 hours to onboard a client. I'm like, okay, how can we do it in 72 minutes? And then build systems. And the last one is scale. Like we're adding or changing features that allow the organization to scale. So add more revenue, add more customers, which can come out of anything. Now, and I had that agency, it was all marketing and technology. When I'm only a CTO for a company, these are technology projects, but they have the lens is business outcome and impact. And when I do growth, then the lens is still business impact, but the activities are more related to marketing and sales. So using that framework, which I think is a good mental model to think about any business. Are we de-risking something right now? Are we unclogging something? Are we scaling something? And then just execute in a conscientious way in an experimental fashion. Like really just do hypothesis, plan, execute, measure, do it again. Kind of, I can think about like OODA loop, if you've heard of that term before.
Yes.
Observe, orient, decide, act. And or Kaizen, which was actually the name of my agency for almost 20 years.
It's a good one.
Yeah, which is ever improvement, ever optimization.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how I think about any growth challenge really that I have through those three lenses.
That's fantastic. Where can people learn more about you and about CTOX online?
CTOX.com. If you're either a business owner that wants a fractional CTO, we have a bunch. And the way it works is that you fill in the form, we get on a call, we learn about your business. We tell you if we think it's relevant. It's not always relevant. And then we go back to our network and we pair you with the right fit. And then we literally just email intro. This is John. We think he's going to do a good job. You tell us if you want 1, 2, or 3 people. We introduce. If you are a tech leader, either a CTO or not, but you manage teams, you manage projects, and you're thinking about doing this as a career, we'd love to talk to you. We have different options from like self-paced, consume the content, all the way to hands-on coaching community, all the way to do it for you. We also have some members that we like do the marketing and sales for them. So it's really good. And then for me personally, LinkedIn, would love to connect, would love to get your comment. I always love to learn. I really like to help. I was just thinking with a couple of marketing friends about LinkedIn titles, covers, so on, because everything with marketing is positioning and explaining. And one of the things that came up that I'm like, oh yeah, that actually resonates pretty well is 2 things. One, maybe give me an opinion. So one was like built to solve, wired to teach. And the other one was like half tech nerd, half business therapist. So I think both can work pretty well. And yeah, connect with me, follow me on LinkedIn. And if you definitely want a technical boost, would love to help you at ctox.com.
Awesome. Well, Lior, it's such a great conversation. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great.
Thanks again, Lior, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Lior and CTOX at ctox.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes. You can see what's going on up here, not just hear it, as well as training, outtakes, shorts, lots more stuff over there for you. And that is on YouTube at Champion Leadership. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone who thinks beyond profit to purpose. Everyone who shares this week gets a balloon animal party thrown by an AI robot that specializes in building MVPs and giraffes. What if your next cybersecurity strategy could scale as fast as your startup? Next week, we're joined by Warner Moore, founder of Gamma Force, and the strategic brain behind high-performing DevOps and security teams in fintech, health tech, and beyond. And after that, we explore the future of AI avatars with Danny Tomset, CEO of Unique, whose digital humans are reshaping how businesses create emotionally resonant customer interactions. I'll see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaS Fuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.